mean, it just continue to shows that you're always kind of thrown into these new situations where you have to learn and adapt and just kind of learn new skills and learn how to do things over and over again. And even though this was something that you were new at, you did come up with some very successful, campaigns. There was the contract with America where you took out a whole page ad in New York and the New York Times. And
Yeah.
then you did the tagline for Comedy Central when it first started. The whole
Right.
"We're all gonna die."
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, let me say it this way. When I first started with comedy, I had to kind of be a jack of all trades anyway. Because I was always looked at as like, all right, so what are we doing here? So I always felt like I was really in charge of the thing, even though I wasn't literally in charge. But I really had to think about programming and marketing because you're putting on a show, you got to get people to watch it, and on-air promotion, which I love. I mean, that whole making commercials for yourself on TV is so much fun and so interesting. But I learned all that stuff sort of on the fly, and I had to find people to teach me, and I did. Luckily, in marketing, so because when they first put me into marketing, I was a little upset that I was out of programming. I worked so hard to get in there, right? Um, but then I also realized, okay, well, this may be an opportunity to learn some new stuff, and I found a guy to teach me about advertising and marketing. And again, I was ahead of the department, which is kind of a funny place to walk in. Once again, everybody who worked for me knew a hell of a lot more about marketing than I did because they'd been working on it in it for years. The good news was I was the boss this time, so they couldn't say, "What do you know about marketing?"
Yeah. No fingers
So,
in the chest this time.
so they were helpful, and we got a lot of good stuff done, and I learned a lot about marketing. And let me tell you something. I went on to work at some other channels, and one of the things I found is that everything you do before, everything you learn about before, and I mean anything in your job, any job you ever had, is useful to you in whatever you're doing. I mean, you find a way to make it useful. It becomes apparent that knowing both programming and marketing put me in a great position to run things, and I became president of Core TV. And the whole idea of putting on a show without marketing, I realized was the stupidest idea in the whole world. You couldn't do it. You could have the best show in the world. If nobody knew about it, they wouldn't watch it. So it really kind of trained me in television, in television in those days, especially how to get yourself out there, how to get your programming out there. And I'm glad somebody made that decision, even though at the moment they made it, I was feeling pretty low.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, it worked out because you managed to come up with a lot of great, iconic slogans and campaigns for Comedy Central, and like "We're all gonna die" I think is one of the most iconic ad campaigns for any channel. And I'm not even sure if I was like born yet when it first came out, but even I know about it. It was just that that big in marketing and everything. So it all
Yeah,
worked out.
we did a lot of breakthrough stuff. And remember, I grew up with, I don't know if you know this, National Lampoon. Does that mean anything
Yep.
to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. National Lampoon had a magazine when I was a kid, when I was in high school, and they tried to bring it back a couple of times. But the guy who was responsible for it was a guy named Doug Kenny. He was probably one of the great comic geniuses ever. And he died young, unfortunately. But they put out like, I don't know, a dozen of these issues or 2 dozen. Some of the greatest written satire comedy ever. And Belushi wrote for it, Chevy Chase wrote for it, all those guys, that's where they started. They started writing this stuff for National Lampoon. And they were my heroes when I was in high school. And I thought a lot about them when we were putting Comedy Central together, because I thought they, at the time, were the center of the comedy universe. I thought they were like where all the best comedy was going and all the best comedians came out of, and then they did records and they did shows and all that stuff. It was very influential for me. And so I was proud to be coming up or being part of, what was now in the 90s, kind of that powerful a comedy entity.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you basically I think we didn't grow up with National Lampoon, the magazine. We grew up with Mad. You know,
Mad Magazine. Well, that was from the 50s, man. Everybody grew up with that.
yeah. And it was like, that was kind of what we were kids. That was our thing. And then I think obviously it turned into Mad TV, which was its own sketch thing on Comedy
Yeah,
Central.
yeah, sure.